It was pouring rain, the kind that soaks you to the bone in seconds. Marcus could have driven right past her, a woman standing beside her broken-down car, drenched, frustrated, and completely stranded. But something made him stop. A simple act of kindness. No big deal, just a mechanic helping someone in need. What he didn't know was that this wasn't just any woman. Days later, as Marcus worked in his small garage, the ground trembled. A helicopter landed right outside. And when she stepped out, his jaw hit the floor. Because she wasn't just a stranger, she was a billionaire. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. Marcus wasn't the type to look for recognition. He was a simple guy, waking up early, working long hours at his small garage on the edge of town. The sign above the door was faded, the paint chipped, but the engines inside always roared back to life under his care. He didn't have much, but what he did have was a reputation, a good one. Honest, dependable, and the guy you could count on when your car broke down in the middle of nowhere. Life hadn't been easy for Marcus. His garage struggled to keep the lights on. Bills piled up faster than customers showed up. But no matter how tight things got, he never let it harden his heart. He believed in kindness, even when life wasn't kind to him. Then there was Clara. When Marcus first saw her, she didn't look like anything special. Just a woman stranded in the rain next to a sleek, fancy car that had given up on her. Her coat was soaked through, hair plastered to her face, frustration written all over her. But beneath that drenched, ordinary appearance was someone extraordinary, someone with more wealth than Marcus could ever imagine. But that day, none of that mattered. The rain poured, the clouds darkened, and in that small, insignificant moment, Marcus did what he always did. He helped. No questions asked, no strings attached. Little did he know that one act of kindness was about to change everything. The rain didn't let up that day. It poured like the sky had something to prove. Marcus pulled his old truck over without thinking twice. The windshield wipers squeaked, barely keeping up as he spotted Clara standing beside her car, a sleek, luxury sedan that looked wildly out of place on that empty road, steam hissing from under the hood. Marcus jumped out, water soaking through his jacket within seconds. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice cutting through the roar of the rain. Clara looked up, her face tight with frustration. "I think my car just died." Marcus gave a small nod. "Let's take a look." No fancy introductions, no awkward small talk. Just a man doing what he knew best, fixing things. Marcus popped the hood, squinting through the downpour. The problem was obvious, an overheated engine. Nothing he couldn't handle. He grabbed a wrench from his truck, his hands moving with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Clara stood there, shivering in her soaked designer coat, her phone useless with no signal. She glanced at Marcus, noticing how focused he was, how he didn't seem bothered by the rain, or the fact that she hadn't offered more than a mumbled thanks. "Do you do this often?" she asked, trying to distract herself from the cold. Marcus chuckled softly. "Fix cars? Yeah, it's kind of my thing." She smiled, despite herself. 15 minutes later, Marcus had the engine humming again. Clara stared in disbelief. "How did you—" Marcus wiped his hands on a rag. "Just needed a little care." "You're good to go." She reached for her purse. "Let me pay you." Marcus shook his head. "Don't worry about it. Just glad I could help." Clara frowned, unused to people refusing money, but Marcus was already walking back to his truck, waving over his shoulder. "Drive safe." And that was it. No exchange of numbers, no expectation of anything more. But fate wasn't done with them. Days later, Marcus was back in his garage. Same routine, worn tools, grease-streaked hands, and the faint hope that more customers would show up. He was under the hood of an old pickup when he heard it, a strange, low rumble that shook the walls. At first, he thought it was thunder, but when he stepped outside, he saw it. A helicopter, landing, right, in, front, office his garage. Marcus stood frozen, wiping sweat and grease from his face as the helicopter's doors opened. And out stepped Clara. But she wasn't the same woman he'd met on that rainy road. She was dressed sharply, her posture confident, flanked by 2 assistants. No sign of the stranded, frustrated woman he'd helped. She walked straight toward him, her heels clicking against the cracked pavement. "Marcus," she said, smiling, "I was hoping I'd find you here." Marcus blinked, trying to process what was happening. Yeah, this is where I usually am." Clara laughed softly. "I owe you more than a simple thank you." Before Marcus could respond, her assistant handed him an envelope. Inside? A check. Marcus stared at the number, his heart skipping a beat. It wasn't just a thank you tip. It was enough to pay off his debts, fix the garage, and still have money left over. But Clara wasn't done. "I didn't just come to pay you back," she said. "I came because I saw something in you that day. You didn't help me because you wanted something. You helped me because that's who you are." Marcus was speechless. "I want to invest in your business," Clara continued. "Expand it. Give you the resources you deserve." Marcus looked at her, then down at the check, his mind racing. Pride and gratitude collided in his chest. "I don't know what to say," he finally managed. "Say yes," Clara replied with a smile. Marcus stood there, gripping the check, his heart racing. The sound of the helicopter's blades faded as it powered down, but the roar inside his chest only grew louder. The numbers on the paper stared back at him, more money than he'd ever seen in one place, enough to wipe away years of debt, to fix every broken piece of his life. But something held him back. Clara watched him closely, her smile gentle but unwavering. "Marcus," she said softly, "this isn't about money. It's about opportunity." Marcus shook his head slowly, his mind tangled with pride and disbelief. "I'm just a mechanic," he muttered. "Why me?" Clara took a step closer, her expression sincere. "Because when I was stranded, cold and frustrated, you didn't see someone rich or important. You just saw a person who needed help. No judgment, no expectations. That's rare." Her words hit him harder than he expected. Marcus glanced around at his garage, the cracked floor, the old rusted tools, the faded sign that barely hung above the door. This place was his legacy, passed down from his father, who built it with his own 2 hands. Marcus had been fighting to keep it alive, holding on to it like it was the only thing that defined him. And now, here was Clara, offering a chance to turn it into something more. But fear crept in. "What if I mess it up?" he asked quietly. "What if I take your help and fail?" Clara smiled, not with pity, but with understanding. "Failure isn't the end. It's part of the process. The only real failure is never trying." Marcus let out a shaky breath, his mind flashing back to the day he helped her. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just action. So why was it so hard now? "Look," Clara continued, her tone firm but kind, "I didn't get where I am by playing it safe. I took risks, I failed, but every time I got back up. The question isn't whether you'll fail. It's whether you'll let that fear stop you." Marcus looked down at the check again. The numbers hadn't changed, but something inside him had. "Okay," he whispered, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. "Let's do it." Clara's smile grew, genuine and warm. She extended her hand, and Marcus shook it, sealing a deal that was more than just business. It was the start of something bigger. But the story didn't end there. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's life transformed. The garage buzzed with activity, new equipment, fresh paint, and a steady stream of customers. But the biggest change wasn't in the building. It was in Marcus. He stood taller, spoke with more confidence, and carried a quiet pride that wasn't tied to stubborn independence, but to growth. Clara visited often, not as a billionaire swooping in to save the day, but as a partner, a mentor, and a friend. One day, as they stood outside the newly renovated garage, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of gold and orange, Clara turned to Marcus. "Do you regret saying yes?" Marcus chuckled, wiping grease from his hands. "Not for a second," she nodded, her eyes reflecting the fading light. Funny how one small act of kindness can change everything. Marcus looked at her, the woman he'd once seen as just another stranded driver. "Yeah," he said softly, "but it wasn't just the kindness. It was the choice to believe in something bigger." They stood there in comfortable silence, two people from completely different worlds, connected by a moment in the rain and a decision that changed both their lives. Because sometimes the biggest opportunities come when you least expect them. And all it takes is the courage to say yes. Just when Marcus thought things had settled, life had one more surprise waiting for him. Business was booming. The once quiet, dusty garage now echoed with the sounds of clanking tools, humming engines, and the laughter of new employees Marcus had been able to hire. He wasn't just fixing cars anymore. He was running a thriving business. His name was becoming known around town, not because of the money, but because of the person he was. One evening, as Marcus was locking up, he noticed a black SUV pull up outside. It wasn't Clara's usual car, but he thought nothing of it. Maybe a new customer. The door opened, and out stepped a man in a sharp suit, carrying a leather briefcase. He looked around, clearly out of place, before approaching Marcus. "Mr. Marcus?" the man asked. Marcus nodded cautiously. "Yeah, can I help you?" The man handed him a business card. Ethan Graves, Corporate Acquisitions. The name meant nothing to Marcus, but something about his polished demeanor felt different. "I represent a company interested in acquiring your garage," Ethan said smoothly, as if it were an everyday offer. "We've been watching your progress. Impressive growth in such a short time." Marcus frowned. "I'm not looking to sell." Ethan's smile didn't falter. "I think you'll reconsider once you see the offer." Marcus hesitated, then took the envelope Ethan offered. Inside was an offer that made his heart skip a beat, a figure so large it almost didn't feel real. Enough to retire, buy a new house, maybe even live comfortably for the rest of his life. But something felt off. "I appreciate the offer," Marcus said slowly, "but I'm not interested." Ethan's smile tightened. "Are you sure? Most people wouldn't think twice." Marcus nodded. "I'm not most people." Ethan gave a curt nod, then added almost as an afterthought, "You know, Clara once had a garage like this." Marcus froze. "What?" Ethan's smile grew slightly. "Before she became who she is today, Clara started with a small business, just like this. She sold it to us, made a fortune. Smart move, really. But sometimes people forget that everything has a price." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Was that why Clara had invested in him? To build him up, only to sell him off? That night, he couldn't sleep. The words echoed in his mind. Everything has a price. The next day, Clara visited the garage. Marcus didn't waste time. "Did you send him?" he asked, holding up the business card. Clara glanced at it, then back at Marcus, her expression unreadable. "Number Y. He says you sold your first business to them, that this is all just part of the plan." Clara sighed, leaning against the hood of a car. I did sell my first business to them, and it was the biggest mistake of my life. Marcus stared, confused. Then why? Because I thought money was the goal. She interrupted softly. I built something with my own hands, poured my heart into it, and then I sold it because I thought success meant a big paycheck. But after the deal was done, I realized I'd sold more than just a business. I'd sold a part of myself. She met his gaze. When I met you, I saw someone who reminded me of who I used to be. Someone who worked hard not for money, but for purpose. I didn't invest in you to make a profit. I invested because I believed in you. Marcus felt the tension in his chest ease slightly, but doubt still lingered. So, why didn't you tell me? Clara's smile was sad. Because I was afraid you'd think this was just another transaction. But it's not. This isn't about money, Marcus. It's about what you want your life to mean. Her words hit harder than he expected. That night, Marcus stood alone in his garage, staring at the tools, the grease-stained floors, the faded photos of his dad on the wall. This place wasn't just a business. It was a piece of him. The next day, Ethan returned, expecting a deal. Marcus didn't hesitate. "No," he said firmly, "I'm not selling." Ethan looked surprised, then annoyed. "You're making a mistake," Marcus smiled. "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." As Ethan left, Marcus felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He realized that success wasn't about the number on a check. It was about waking up every day proud of what you've built. And sometimes, the biggest revelation isn't discovering someone else's truth. It's discovering your own. Weeks passed after Marcus's decision to turn down Ethan's offer. The days felt quieter, but not in an empty way, in a peaceful one. The kind of peace that comes when you know you've made the right choice, even if the world says otherwise. Marcus's garage wasn't just thriving, it was alive. The walls echoed with laughter from his new employees, the sounds of wrenches clanking, engines roaring, and radios humming old blues tunes. Business was good, but more importantly, Marcus was proud, not just of the money coming in, but of the man he'd become. One day, Clara visited again. She wasn't in a suit or flanked by assistants, just jeans, a simple jacket, and a coffee in hand. Marcus grinned when he saw her. "No helicopter today?" She laughed, shaking her head. Decided to keep it low-key. They sat on an old tire, sipping coffee as the afternoon sun dipped low. For a while, they didn't say much. Just two people who had been strangers not long ago, now connected by something more than business. "You know," Clara started, staring at the horizon, "when I sold my first business, I thought I'd feel unstoppable, like I'd made it. But instead, I felt hollow, like I'd traded a part of myself for a number on a check." Marcus nodded slowly. "I get that now." She turned to him. "But you made a different choice. You didn't sell out. You stood your ground. That's something I wish I'd done." Marcus chuckled softly. "Funny thing is, I thought about it. The money would have fixed a lot of problems, but it wouldn't have fixed me." Clara smiled. "That's the difference. Success isn't about what you have. It's about who you are when no one's watching." Marcus glanced around at his garage, remembering the days when he'd stand alone here, wondering if he'd ever catch a break. And now, he realized the break had never been about luck. It had been about the choices he made, the simple act of helping a stranger in the rain without expecting anything in return. Later that evening, as Clara left, she handed Marcus a small envelope. "No checks this time," she joked. Inside was a handwritten note. "Kindness is a seed. You planted one. Now look how it's grown." Marcus read the note over and over, feeling something shift inside. a deeper understanding that success wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touched. Months passed, and Marcus's garage became more than just a business. It became a symbol in the community, a place where people felt respected, heard, and welcomed. Marcus started mentoring young mechanics, teaching them not just about cars, but about life, about the importance of integrity, hard work, and kindness. One afternoon, a young man named Jamal walked into the garage looking for work. His clothes were worn, his eyes filled with both hope and fear. Marcus saw a reflection of his younger self in Jamal. "Ever worked on cars before?" Marcus asked. Jamal shook his head. "Not really, but I learn fast." Marcus smiled. "That's good enough for me." No fancy applications, no background checks, just a simple belief in giving someone a chance. As Jamal settled into his new role, Marcus realized something powerful, that the legacy he was building wasn't about the garage. It was about the people. The lives changed, the lessons passed down, and all of it started with one rainy day, one act of kindness, and a choice to believe in something bigger than himself. Because at the end of the day, success isn't about the cars you fix or the money you make. It's about the hearts you touch along the way. Sometimes life changes with a grand event, a lottery win, a promotion, a big break. But more often than not, it's the small moments that ripple out in ways we never expect. A decision to stop on a rainy road, a choice to help without expecting anything in return. That's what happened with Marcus. He didn't set out to change his life. He didn't plan on meeting a billionaire or turning down a fortune. All he did was help someone because it was the right thing to do. And that simple act of kindness, it grew into something he never imagined. A thriving business, a renewed sense of purpose, a legacy built not on wealth, but on integrity. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the impact you leave behind, the people you inspire, the hearts you touch. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever had a small moment that changed your life in a big way? Maybe it was a stranger's kindness, a decision you almost didn't make, or a risk you were scared to take. Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of simple acts and meaningful choices. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the smallest actions create the biggest changes.